Okay, so let's dive right in. Today we're unpacking something the source material you shared calls cursor vibe coding.
Yeah, it sounds almost mystical, doesn't it? But the source is actually pretty clear. This is about a practical shift, how software development can really work now, with AI.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's all based on this one article you found that really breaks down this new way of working,
Mm.
specifically with the Cursor IDE and its AI.
Right.
So our mission here is basically to pull out the core ideas, the actionable stuff from that source. We want you to walk away really getting what cursor vibe coding is,
Mhm.
why it's popping up now, and how it changes the day-to-day coding grind.
Think of it as like a shortcut for you. If you're trying to get a handle on new tech trends fast or figure out how to actually use these AI tools without feeling totally lost,
Yeah.
then this deep dive is, well, it's for you. We'll break down the ideas, the steps, the mindset needed, all straight from the source.
All right. Let's get straight to the heart of it then. This whole vibe coding idea. What is it according to the source?
So the core concept, as the article defines it, it's really about strategically using the Cursor AI, specifically inside the Cursor IDE,
Okay.
and using it to handle what they call the muscle work of coding.
The muscle work.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practice? Like the typing?
Yeah, exactly. The repetitive typing, reshaping code, debugging simple syntax things, writing boilerplate,
Uh-huh.
all that stuff that honestly large language models are getting incredibly good at handling. So the insight, the source argues, is that the human developer kind of steps back from that part.
You're not just banging out code constantly.
Precisely. The human stays in charge, focusing on the higher level stuff, the
Yeah.
architecture, the intent behind a feature, steering the whole project.
And why now? What does the source say triggered this?
Well, it points directly to large language models. They fundamentally change the balance, the sort of economics of software development. Suddenly, you could delegate tasks that used to take ages of manual effort.
That really does shift the balance, doesn't it? It sounds quite different from the traditional way you learn coding, memorizing keywords, library functions.
Oh, absolutely. The source makes that contrast pretty starkly. Traditional learning, lots of tutorials, it's often about building that muscle memory for syntax,
Right.
vibe coding. It's more about describing the outcome you want. You say what you need, the AI proposes code, and then your job becomes shaping it, guiding it.
Ah, okay. Like that analogy they used in the source.
Yeah,
It feels less like typing and more like conducting an orchestra.
exactly. That analogy really nails the feeling they're trying to convey. You're directing the flow, not playing every instrument yourself.
Okay, that makes sense conceptually. So if the Cursor IDE is the tool enabling this, how do you get started? What's the practical entry point the source describes?
Well, first off, the article points out it's built on something familiar. It's actually a fork of VS Code.
Oh, okay. So if you've used VS Code before.
Exactly. You'll feel pretty much at home with the basic editor, the layout. That lowers the barrier to entry quite a bit.
Smart move. So what's the big difference then?
The integrated AI chat panel, it's right there in the sidebar. The source calls it like having superpowers out of the box.
Right. And they talk about the practical side too, the cost up front.
They do, which is helpful. They detail the 3 tiers they offer.
Yeah, I like their line, pay after you fall in love. So there's a hobby plan.
Yep, hobby is free. Good for trying it out, students, maybe small personal projects. You get, I think, 200 completions and 50 premium requests a month.
Enough to sort of kick the tires, see if it clicks for you.
Totally. Then there's the pro plan. That's aimed at individuals, freelancers, solo devs. That one's $20 a month.
And what does that get you?
Unlimited completions, which is key. 500 fast requests, unlimited slower ones, and access to what they call max mode for tougher problems.
Okay, that sounds like the main tier if you're using it seriously day to day. And then for teams.
There's the business plan. $40 per user per month gets you everything in Pro, plus the team stuff, org-wide privacy, central billing, admin dashboards, SSO, all that.
So they've definitely thought about how it scales from just trying it out to rolling it out company-wide.
Right. But, and this is important, the source really emphasizes that just installing it isn't, well, it's not magic.
The mindset shift, you mentioned that. It's
Right.
not just plug and play.
Not at all. You still absolutely need your human insight. The source compares it to using a Stack Overflow snippet. You can't just paste it in blindly, right? You need to understand why it works, or if it works in your specific context.
Right. You're still responsible for the outcome.
Exactly. Advocation is not the goal here. The approach the source recommends is actually quite interesting. Treat the AI like a junior colleague.
And junior colleagues. How so?
Well, praise it when it generates good code, be appreciative, but also don't hesitate to correct it when it's wrong. Be specific about the errors. Ask for revisions.
Ah, okay. This must be where that idea of debugging the conversation comes in.
Precisely. If the AI suggests a bad import, you tell it. If the code throws an error in the browser, you copy that error message right back into the chat.
So you're guiding its learning, in a way.
Yeah. You're the captain, the source says. The AI is like your very capable, very fast, but sometimes slightly naive first mate. It's a partnership. The AI isn't just taking over.
Okay, partnership. Let's make this concrete.
Yeah.
The source uses a practical example, right?
Right.
Building a simple Super Mario-type game.
Yeah, it's a great walkthrough of the workflow.
Right.
So step 1, choosing your tech stack.
Yep.
Instead of endless Googling, you go into Cursor's Ask mode. You just describe what you want. Like the source suggests typing something like, I want to build a Super Mario-style browser game, beginner level, don't know JavaScript well, recommend a library, and maybe a basic plan.
And the AI comes back with suggestions.
Yeah, maybe it suggests kaboom.js or Phaser. Then you can follow up like, okay, which one's easier for a beginner using Cursor AI?
And might recommend Kaboom, and even give you a starting prompt.
Exactly. The source says you take that prompt, maybe you save it to a file like prompt.txt, then, and this is key, you switch from ask mode to agent mode.
Agent mode, right. Different function.
Yeah. And you tell the agent, do what prompt.txt says.
Then what happens?
This is where you feel that vibe, that orchestration. The source describes files literally just appearing in your Project Explorer index.html, game.js, read.ab, all with green highlights showing the code the AI just wrote.
Whoa. Oh.
That's what they call experiencing real cursor vibe coding. You didn't wrestle with setup or boilerplate. You stated your intent, and the AI scaffolded the basic project structure.
Okay, files exist, but you can't just trust it blindly, right? You have to review.
Absolutely. Cursor has a diff viewer built right in, usually at the bottom. Green for new code, red for deleted code.
Standard diff view.
Yeah. And the source gives a really simple, practical rule of thumb here. If the code looks reasonable, and importantly, if it compiles or runs correctly, click Accept.
And if not?
If it breaks things, looks totally off, or does something unexpected, click Reject. Or you can go back to the chat and ask the AI to revise its approach based on the problem.
Okay, and the source mentions something important about changes being on disk immediately. But reject rolls them back. That seems crucial for not panicking.
Yes, exactly. That detail is key. The agent writes the files directly. Rejecting is like an instant undo for that specific agent action. It gives you the confidence to let it try bigger changes.
Gotcha. So after scaffolding, you get into the actual coding loop, debugging.
Right, the dance, as the source calls it. Let's say you open that index.html in your browser and the console shows an error. Something classic like solid is not defined.
Okay, common JavaScript issue. What's the vibe coding move?
Copy the error message straight from the console. Switch back to Cursor's Ask mode. Paste the error in and ask for a fix. Hey, browser says solid is not defined on line 43. Can you fix the reference in game.js?
The AI just fixes it.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
A few seconds later, it might edit game.js, add the missing definition or import, and show you the diff again. You review it, click Accept, refresh your browser.
And hopefully the error is gone.
Exactly, that cycle. See, error copy-paste AI, get fix, review, diff, accept, refresh. The source literally calls that the heartbeat of Cursor vibe coding. It's that tight feedback loop.
But what if the AI gets stuck, like it keeps suggesting the wrong thing or just doesn't understand?
Ah, yes. This is where the human captain role really comes into play, according to the source. The answer is usually provide more context.
More context.
Yeah, why?
Let's say the jump mechanic in your game isn't working right. Instead of just saying, the jump is broken, you might need to give the AI the actual documentation. Find the relevant section on jumping in the kaboom.js docs online.
Copy that text. Go to the Add Context panel in the Cursor chat. You can even label it, like kaboomdocs.md. Paste the documentation text there.
Ah, so you're feeding it the official source.
Exactly. Then you prompt the agent again. Okay, read kaboomdocs.md. Now, using that information, fix the jump mechanic in game.js, and please explain why you made the change.
So giving it the right raw materials helps it generate a better answer.
Precisely. It nudges the AI towards the correct canonical way of doing things and helps it break out of whatever wrong assumption it was stuck on. The source has a great analogy for this. Feed it the right ingredients, it cooks a better meal.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, this workflow with the AI making potentially big changes quickly, it sounds like you need some safety nets. The force really emphasizes guardrails, right? What's the big one?
Version control, specifically Git. The source is adamant this is not optional for vibe coding.
Really? That essential?
Absolutely. Before you let the AI try implementing a complex feature or doing a big refactor, you must have a clean working state committed to Git. Git init, git add, git commit, working baseline before jump feature, whatever it takes.
So you always have a safe point to return to.
Exactly. The source uses a powerful analogy. Doing vibe coding without Git is like climbing without a rope.
Oof. Okay.
If an agent run goes totally haywire and messes up half your files, which can happen, you just use Git's discard changes or Git reset hard back to your last good commit. It's what gives you the freedom to experiment boldly with the AI.
Makes sense. What other guardrails does the source talk about?
Using project-specific rules, you can create a special file, .cursor rules.
Put what in there? Style guides.
Yeah, things like that. The source gives examples like always use kaboom.js for game logic, or keep all lines under 80 characters, or make sure canvas elements have alt text.
Yep.
You mark these rules as always.
And the AI tries to follow them.
Supposedly, yes. Every time it suggests code or runs a task, it should take those rules into account. The source calls it giving the AI a North Star, helps keep it consistent, and prevents it from drifting too far off course, especially on bigger projects.
Okay, so Git for safety, rules for consistency. And because Cursor is built on VS Code, you still get the regular extension ecosystem too.
You do. That's a big plus. You can install all your usual favorites from the VS Code marketplace, Prettier for code formatting, ESLint for catching errors, maybe language-specific snippets, spell checkers.
So those tools work alongside the AI.
Yeah, the source sees them as complementary. They round out what the model might miss, adding another layer of polish and correctness.
Okay, so you've got the workflow, the mindset, the guardrails. How does this whole Cursor experience stack up against, say, just using regular VS Code with GitHub Copilot? The source is a comparison, right? An honest showdown.
It does, and it acknowledges up front that, yeah, VS Code plus Copilot is a totally viable setup. Lots of people use it and like it. But, according to the source, once you've really experienced the integrated Cursor workflow, going back feels like the analogy they use is creating a multi-speed bike for a scooter.
Wow, okay, that's a strong claim. Why such a big difference in feel?
Well, the core editing is the same VS Code base, so your typing muscle memory is fine. But the source argues the integration is the key. Having the AI chat, the code editor, and the diff review all seamlessly in one window.
Reduces context switching.
Massively. It cuts down on that cognitive drag of flipping between windows or dealing with Copilot's inline suggestions versus a separate chat panel. And crucially,
Yes.
because the Cursor team controls the whole IDE, including the sidebars, they can give the AI capabilities that Copilot, being just an extension in standard VS Code, can't easily replicate. Like telling the AI in the chat, search the web for the latest React hooks documentation, or look up how to use this specific function in kaboomdocs.md, or even run the npm test command in the terminal and tell me the output. That direct interaction with external tools and the file system from the chat is unique to Cursor's integrated approach, according to the source.
Interesting. And the source mentioned you can actually use Copilot inside Cursor too, a hybrid approach.
Yeah, apparently you can install the Copilot extension in Cursor. So you could let Copilot handle the quick inline auto-completions while you use the main Cursor AI agent for the bigger tasks, the refactoring, the debugging conversations. The source suggests this still fits under the vibe coding umbrella.
Okay, as you get more experience with this, you probably start repeating certain prompts for common tasks, right? The source talks about prompt recipes.
Yes, this is a neat idea for scaling up and for teams. You identify patterns in your successful prompts and save them as reusable templates.
Where do you save them?
In a file, maybe .cursorprompt-library.md in your project. Then, when you want to run one, instead of typing it all out, you just add that file as context to your chat.
Ah, so you tell the AI, use the refactor recipe from the library on this code.
Exactly. It turns complex, multi-step prompts into repeatable actions. The source gives some great examples, like a refactor recipe that specifically tells the AI to convert old callback code to modern async await and ensure existing unit tests are updated and still pass.
That's very specific.
Or a doc generator recipe to add JS doc comments in a consistent style. or even a scenario builder recipe.
What does that one do?
It first prompts the AI to write failing just tests for a tricky edge case you describe. Then, in the same prompt, it tells the AI to modify the actual implementation code until those new tests pass.
Wow, that's like test-driven development, but with the AI doing a lot of the driving.
Kind of. It's a powerful way to enforce quality and consistency, especially for teams. Everyone can pull from the same library of proven, high-quality prompts.
Speaking of teams, let's talk about actually shipping code developed this way.
hmm
The source outlines a kind of vibe-safe pipeline.
Yeah, it's a suggested workflow to integrate this into a production environment while keeping human oversight. It involves several stages.
Okay, like the first stage, draft.
Right. On a feature branch, the developer uses an agent prompt to generate the initial code, maybe scaffold a new component, and its basic tests. The human check here is the developer reviewing that initial diff from the agent before accepting it.
Then it goes to CI, CI-lint, CI test.
Correct. Your standard automated checks, ESLint, Prettier, Just, maybe Playwright for end-to-end tests. These run automatically on the code the agent generated or modified.
And the human check.
Is simply monitoring the CI pipeline results. Does everything pass? If not, maybe you go back to the AI, show it the CI failure, and ask it to fix the code.
Then there's a preview stage mentioned.
Yeah, this is common now. Deploying the feature branch to a temporary URL using something like Vercel or Netlify. The source even suggests the agent could potentially post that preview link back into the Cursor chat automatically.
Clever. And the human check is?
Manual QA, maybe stakeholders clicking around on that live preview environment. Does it actually work as expected?
And the final step, merge.
Here, the agent might help again, perhaps by drafting the pull request description, summarizing its changes, maybe even flagging potential risks it identified. But the ultimate sign-off, the actual merge approval, is still firmly with a human tech lead or senior developer.
And crucially, this whole pipeline relies on Git branches and commits.
Absolutely. That rewind superpower, as the source calls it, remains essential throughout the process.
Okay, that pipeline makes sense for integrating the AI's output. But how do you get a whole team comfortable and effective with this vibe coding approach? The source had some tips for teaching teams.
It did, as sort of quick guide. First point, establish a shared rules repo.
A shared repository for those .cursor rules files.
Exactly, and more. A shared package, maybe, that everyone ports. It contains standard linting rules, maybe required code headers or security banners, but also, crucially, standard onboarding prompts.
Onboarding prompts, like?
Like prompts you can easily reuse, maybe stored in that prompt library we talked about. Things like, explain the changes in this diff to me in simple terms, or walk me through the logic of this function. Helps everyone, especially new hires, get up to speed quickly using the AI consistently.
Okay, consistency is key. What else?
Pair vibe sessions, using Cursor's built-in live share feature.
So multiple developers in the same Cursor session.
Yeah. One person might be driving the prompting, but others are watching the code changes appear, reviewing the diffs in real time, discussing the AI suggestions right there in the shared session. The source calls it like pair programming, but with the AI as a very active third participant.
Toto-charged remote pairing, basically.
Pretty much. And the last point was model budget tracking.
The cost again. Keeping an eye on usage.
Right. The source suggests maybe only upgrading specific power users to the paid pro tier initially. Cursor shows token counts for each chat, apparently. So you can monitor usage, maybe export stats weekly, and get a handle on the actual costs before rolling it out wider. Helps manage expectations and budget.
And the overall outcome described for teams using these methods.
Faster onboarding, better enforcement of standards via rules and recipes, and just more consistent, effective use of the AI across the board.
Makes sense. Now, what about some specific situations? Like, can you use this if you're offline or if you have super sensitive code that can't touch the cloud? Local models?
The source covers that. Cursor is designed so you can point it at any OpenAI-compatible API endpoint.
Meaning, you don't have to use OpenAI's or Anthropic's cloud models.
Correct. You could theoretically download and run a compatible large language model. The source mentions DeepSeek Coder as an example on your own local machine or on a server inside your company's private network.
And then you just configure Cursor to talk to that local endpoint instead of the cloud.
Exactly. All the AI processing, the code analysis, the conversation stays completely within your control, totally air-gapped if needed.
Okay, that addresses major privacy and security concerns for some use cases. What's the downside, according to the source?
Well, the trade-off is usually performance and capability. Your local model might not be as powerful, as fast, or have access to the very latest training data compared to something like GPT-4 Turbo in the cloud, but you gain that absolute control over latency and privacy. It's still vibe coding, just self-hosted.
Got it. Okay. Inevitably, even with guardrails, things will go wrong. The AI might misunderstand, get stuck in loops, generate buggy code. How does the source suggest troubleshooting the interaction itself?
Yeah, it offers a handy little mini playbook, like a checklist taped to your monitor for when the vibe gets weird.
Okay, hit me. What's on the list?
First, if a bug keeps slipping through or the AI makes the same mistake repeatedly, try switching models. Maybe GPT-4 isn't getting it, but Claude 3 Opus might. Different models have different strengths.
Okay, simple enough. What if the agent starts messing up code that was definitely working just fine a minute ago?
Reject the bad diff immediately. Then use Git to tag that last known good commit, like git tag v2.1 stable. If the AI goes off the rails again, you know exactly where to reset back to. Don't let it corrupt good history.
Makes sense. What if the chat itself just feels confused? Like the AI isn't understanding the current state of the file?
Start a brand new chat session. The source says sometimes the conversation history gets too long or convoluted. In the new chat, use the add context feature to attach only the specific file you're working on and ask a very focused question about just that file. Clean slate.
Right, reduce the noise. What about when the AI fails because it just doesn't have enough context, like it doesn't know about some internal library?
Two options there. You can try cranking up the max context setting in the chat options to let it see more of your project files. Or, better yet, explicitly feed it the missing information. Paste relevant internal docs, code snippets from other files, whatever it needs, directly into the Add Context panel. Remember, feed it the right ingredients.
Good reminder. Any other troubleshooting tips?
One more for performance. If the AI generates code that works but feels sluggish, you can prompt it specifically. Profile this function name. Can you suggest an alternative implementation with better big O complexity, maybe O and login? Keep the public API the same, though.
Directly asking it to optimize.
Yeah. The source frames these not just as fixes, but as sort of rituals that help you build reliability and make the vibe coding process more robust over time.
Okay, before we move towards wrapping up, the source highlighted a few specific cursor features called overlooked power tools that
Yep.
really reinforce this whole mindset.
Yeah, good point. Like inline explain.
What's that?
You highlight a block of code, hit a keyboard shortcut like +K, then +I on Mac, and Cursors gives you a plain English explanation of what that code is doing right there in the editor. Super useful for understanding unfamiliar code quickly.
Oh, I can see that being helpful. What else?
Terminal tasks. You can define common command line tasks you run often, like npm run test or docker build in a special config file, .cursortask.yaml. Give them names like validate tests.
Okay.
Then you can tell the AI agent in the chat, before you commit these changes, run the validate test task. It basically lets the AI automate running your checks for you as part of its workflow.
Integrating CI checks right into the development loop.
Clever. And the last one was combining live share with Cursor Chat, which we touched on for Teams.
Right, the pair vibe sessions.
It's worth re-emphasizing because the source suggests it's more than just screen sharing. You have the shared code, the shared diff review popping up, the shared AI chat thread where anyone can prompt, and your normal voice chat. It really makes the AI feel like a third collaborator in a remote pairing session.
Yeah, these features definitely push it beyond just code generation. It's more about, orchestrating the whole environment.
And speaking of the future, the source hinted at what might be next. Roadmap whispers.
Just briefly, things like AI models potentially doing automated code reviews on pull requests, or integrating runtime observability data like performance metrics or errors from production directly into the AI chat so you can debug with live context.
Wow.
And even more advanced design-to-code workflows. Imagine exporting a design from Figma as JSON, feeding it to the AI, and getting back not just React components, but maybe even associated Cypress tests written for you.
Okay, that definitely points towards more and more automation across the development lifecycle, which shifts the human role even more towards vision, architecture.
I think so. Which brings us nicely to the source's final thoughts. Really the key takeaway from this whole deep dive.
Which is?
That this approach, cursor vibe coding, it augments your intuition. It absolutely does not replace it.
The human is still critical, utterly essential, according to the source. You're still the one making the hard choices. Which library fits best? What are the architectural trade-offs? How do you write comments and structure code so it tells a clear story? Those are human decisions.
So the AI handles the muscle work, the mechanics.
Right. It accelerates the tedious parts. But the craftsmanship, the elegance, the thoughtful design, the human fingerprint that really defines software quality that's still entirely on you, the source wraps it up perfectly with this line. The vibe is real because you orchestrated it.
That's a great summary.
Okay.
So, okay, wrapping our deep dive based on this source material, cursor vibe coding isn't just about getting AI to spit out code. It's really a different way of working a strategic partnership. Using AI, particularly in an integrated environment like Cursor, lets you orchestrate the coding process.
Right. It frees you up, ideally, to focus more on the creative problem solving, the architectural thinking, the stuff humans excel at. We've gone through what the source says it is, the practical steps, the mindset shift required, all pulled directly from that article.
And it definitely leaves you, the listener, with some interesting things to think about, doesn't it? As AI gets better and better at the technical heavy lifting.
Yeah, what skills become more valuable for developers? How does that human-AI partnership continue to evolve? What does being a craftsman or an orchestrator truly mean in this emerging landscape?
Exactly. Definitely something to mull over as you maybe go explore this vibe coding concept for yourself.